For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Dan Weber. Instant analysis of the Wednesday practice leading up to the Notre Dame game. More interesting news on USC's defensive line front. Rasheem Green did not practice today, but Helton said it was strictly precautionary, but that also means that Brendan Peely, Liam Jimmons, and some Jay Tufele got first-team reps today, but Helton said ultimately it would take a couple injuries to burn Jay Tufele's red shirt.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. But, yeah, that's four. They're down 4 defensive linemen in 2.5 weeks, so that's a lot. I mean, you know, nobody's got that many defensive linemen. So, and I wasn't crazy about the way Rasheem walked into practice. I mean, he didn't have his cleats on, no pads, and he looked like he was hurting. Now, the answer that Clancy gave was, you know, he'll be on the plane. But so I don't know what we want to think. I think we have a better feeling on the offense for Toa Lobanon, who has been out the 2 practices, Tuesday, Wednesday, with a strained pec. But you get the sense he's going to play. They know he's going to play. They just didn't want to take a chance of him, you know, tearing anything.
Cam Smith was a guy who got limited reps yesterday. He got some more reps today. He didn't go first team, though, but Helton said that was just precautionary. He's a guy like Deontay Burnett who has a high rep count, and they just want to rest him.
Yeah, I mean, and he looks like strictly that was it. I mean, you know, he had a 16-tackle game against Utah. And the interesting point there was Clay credited Brandon Peely with the fact that Cam could get those 16 tackles because he's lining up a lot of that game behind Brandon. And Brandon is getting the double team, and they weren't able to get out on Cam. So he said that's what happened. You got somebody play big and strong. He gets 2 blockers, and then Cam is free. We've had a lot of...
There's a lot of noises happening right now.
We had a lot of hell. I don't know. I think that might have been the one that was hovering over the practice field. I don't know. Is that blue and gold colors on that?
Green
but
and gold?
He was staying there, whichever colors the Irish are wearing this week. But there is, you know, I do like it that there's so much focus this week on Notre Dame. You know, that they're playing, you know, the music, the Notre Dame fight song, the Irish music, and you know, one little time between plays, you saw Chris Brown, the blues guitarist on the USC offensive line, and Nico Falla were doing an Irish jig to the Irish music. So it was kind of fun to watch.
It was definitely a great moment in practice. Also, there's a couple injuries on the longer-term injured guys. Porter Gustin had an MRI and a CAT scan. Helton said that it didn't look great. He said that they're hoping week to week for Porter, but it's something where he needs to come back and practice before he can even be considered for a game, and we haven't even seen him at practice.
We haven't seen him out of his boot yet.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still in a boot. He's moving well, but he's still in a boot.
And then Stephen Carr is doubtful for Saturday as well.
Yeah, they're calling it day-to-day, but that's day-to-day it's doubtful for him. I just thought, and Josh Fatu is still, after the automobile accident, we're not seeing him, and he's still in concussion protocol, and his day-to-day he's doubtful.
Yeah, Helton basically ruled him out today. It's interesting, though. You mentioned the crowd noise, how much USC is putting emphasis on this. I got to talk to Ronnie Bradford, the DB's coach, and he said it's actually helpful when we go to hostile environments because the crowds are smart and they quiet for their own offense, which means we get to hear ourselves. He said that the DBs actually have to go to hand signals at the Coliseum sometimes because there's so much noise trying to get that offense riled up.
Sometimes I would think when you're talking about Jack and maybe even Chris, hand signals are probably not a bad thing. If you know what I mean.
What do you mean there, Dan?
We have some talkers in the secondary, and so if they're in an environment where they absolutely can't be heard, maybe they don't have to worry so much about. I don't know though. I think Jack Jones is going to talk no matter where he is. So hand signals or not.
Communication to their own teammates, not necessarily the opposing team. You got to talk to some other defensive guys today. What did they have to say about Notre Dame?
I think Cam just said, another team, strong team that's going to run the ball at us. And kind of that's a good thing. I mean, that was Western Michigan. That was Stanford. That was Texas, as it turned out. That was Utah. I mean, this is a game that they kind of feel, okay, we've been there before. We've been, maybe we had a few more defensive linemen ready to play. But they just said, they're going to come right at us. And Clancy said they're not as, everybody talks about how, much of, 308 yards a game rushing and how much of a run team they are. He said their concepts are pretty much the same as last year. They just don't have a quarterback that they're going to drop back and have him throw the ball as much as Deshaun Kaiser last year with Brandon Wimbush this year. But he said they don't look that different in terms of what they're doing, except they just end up running the ball more.
Mm-hmm. It's a big game. It's a rivalry game. USC's and Notre Dame are ranked for the first time since 2009, I believe. On a national stage like this, especially for people who've been clamoring about where USC is in the polls, how big is this game as far as national perception?
Well, that's what I asked Chris Hawkins, and I said, how good are you? Because he said now people will be able. He said it's a 7:30 East Coast time, so those people will be able to see us. It's 4:30 on the West Coast. And everybody will be able to see us and see how good we are. And I said, how good are you? And he said, well, he had the classic USC answer right now. We're 6-1. Yeah. I said, well, how good really? How good are you? And he said, I think we're the best team in the country. And then he also said, one of the things he likes about the way Clay coaches this team is, he said, he keeps us grounded and humble. So, you can take your pick of those two answers.
A little mix of both, I guess.
Yeah.
Given the way USC's practiced this week, they looked pretty good yesterday. Sort of a little offensive struggles today. How would you assess what's going to happen on Saturday? Putting you on the spot.
Well, I thought Tyler Vaughn's had a really good practice. I thought Deontay Burnett had a really good practice. I thought Sam had a good practice. I thought the guy that you keep seeing making plays is Teron Sidney, whether that gets him on the field or not. He was in there with the first group plenty. And I think this team goes as Sam goes. I mean, you watch the Rose Bowl, there you go. If he's Sam of the Rose Bowl, if they've got guys that are making those tough catches, those catch-bang plays, and Daniel Mater-Baby made one of those today where he got just crushed by Bubba Bolden. So if you get those guys who are going to make those plays, which will extend drives, USC, they'll be in good shape. I mean, Notre Dame can't run the ball if USC's on the field running, a 16-play scoring drive or an 11-play or 3 drives, 88 yards or more. That takes them off the field, so you don't have to worry as much about that. I just think Sam looks like he's got the potential to be Sam from here on out. If Sam is Sam, they're in pretty good shape. We'll see. If Sam is Sam and the guys around him are making the plays he needs them to make, USC's got a pretty good chance to go the rest of the way. But we'll see. I mean, if they're the USC team that came out at Washington State with that game or that game plan, if they're the USC team that came out at Oregon with the Oregon State game or game plan, they don't have a good chance. Mm-hmm. And those were only, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So we'll see. But the Utah game, the USC team at the Utah game second half probably wins out.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. We talked about yesterday how there seems to be a carryover from the confidence that we saw in that second half. How much does the wide receiver stepping up and then making Darnold confident help with his confidence overall? Is that the switch he needed to be the Sam that needs to take this team for the rest of the season?
I think it works two ways. I think Sam being Sam is the switch maybe that turns the wide receivers on. I think the wide receivers making those plays is, I think they complement one another. And I think that's what you had to have. I mean, Sam can't complete passes to himself. I mean, there's no question about that. So he needs those guys to step up, and he needs them to make, those tough plays. If he's going to make a tough play, on the scramble and throw it on the run, they have to be there and they have to catch the ball, and they're going to get hit. And you saw, 5 guys, I guess, did that against Utah. You saw Daniel do it again today. You saw Tyler Petit. 2 touchdown passes, he just got exactly where he needed to be. If that keeps happening, and if the offensive line basically attacks people the way they did the second half against Utah, they got a chance. I mean, they definitely have a good chance. That's how they have to play, though. They can't have the Oregon State game. They can't have the Washington State game. They can't mail it in. They got to be. You get the sense from watching them this week, they know that.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We will see indeed. Well, that's going to wrap it up here at USC. We'll see you guys next in South Bend. For Dan Weber, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.